Okay, so it is Mocking Mind, 30th of November 2021, and it's awesome to have everybody with us. And you know, as each Mocking Mind that we've been doing through the years is because through the months, the weeks, the years, is because I've had to learn something. So the only reason why we have this is because Michelle is on a learning curve, and so yeah, so I'd love to share with you where I'm at and what is going through in my space, and just maybe this could help you guys as well. Okay, so tonight's topic is a very interesting topic, and it's the effects of betrayal on the brain. Okay, now all of us can go back, and all of us, yeah, for sure, Fernanda, all of us can somewhere along the line automatically, when you hear the word betrayal, somebody comes to mind immediately. Okay, so if you're anything like me, it's probably a chorus of people. Okay, because the betrayal comes from my perspective. Always remember that. Okay, but because it still does that, what we need to do is see is what is happening to us and how do we overcome it and how do we actually get through it. All right, so I found it very interesting to go through all of this. So let's share screen. Just minimize that. Oops, share screen, share screen, share screen. There we go. Okay, thumbs up, you can see the screen. You're all good. Fantastic. Okay, so that's the topic we're going to be looking at is how that impacts us. So as we're going through this, please type some questions, say, hey, stop, I want to talk about that now, and let's go through what it is possibly that we need to process. So I don't want to go through it quickly. There's a lot of things, but it is very important for us to actually have a look at it, because somewhere along the line, we feel that we have been betrayed by someone. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand is that experiencing betrayal, which is a form of emotional abuse, can cause various post-traumatic stress disorders. So even though somebody betrayed you when you were a child, it could have been somebody who betrayed you on the kindergarten, you know, by swapping you sandwiches or something like that. That's going to stick in your mind. And we don't understand it's going to work and stay with us. And betrayal can come from various different ways. So symptoms such as flashbacks, nightmares, and impaired sleeping, depression, anxiety, brain fog, distrust, disassociation are common with our post-traumatic stress that we will feel because we feel that we have been betrayed. So there's quite a lot of things that and this is just a small handful of the ones that are most common. Okay, so betrayed people often feel as if their reality has been shaken to the core, and I don't think people understand the seriousness of that feeling of being betrayed. And what happens is, even us, without realizing it, we might have betrayed someone else, because remember, betrayal is going to come from their perspective, their history, things that have happened to them. So we can't say that you can't feel betrayed by this, and this, only because you don't feel that way. So we need to understand what it does and what it does to people individually. So what does betrayal do to a person? Okay. The effects of betrayal include shock, loss, and grief, morbid preoccupation, damaged self-esteem, self-doubting, and anger as well. So these are some of the effects that betrayal you will feel. So one of these things, and I think when you get betrayed by someone, I think shock hits you first, because why? You can't believe that that person would betray you. All right, so that's something that we need to understand, is that the shock is going to get in, and the moment then we're going to feel a loss of connection with that person, a loss of trust, a lot of things that will go through us as we're working through that. Okay, yes.
The question I'm thinking of is, does our behavioral styles in any way play a role if you look at the kind of effects of betrayal? Like, what comes to mind immediately is anger is normally associated with the emotional response for a choleric or a high driving D. The self-doubting is normally the S, that they sort of procrastinate. Yes, no, was it me?
Or
Was
the
it them?
self-doubting might
Yeah.
actually be the C, whereas the self-image, esteem could be the S.
Self-esteem could be the I.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Self-esteem could be the I.
Oh, but that's the morbid preoccupation. So morbid is depressing, preoccupied. So morbid is that depressing thoughts all the time. That would be morbid. I hope that makes sense.
All right. And whereas there are generic ones, I mean, because everyone, whether you're D, I, S, or C, you'll experience shock, but you'll just process it differently.
Absolutely.
And the same with loss and grief. So, but it's just, I'm just thinking of, it does play a role in terms of who we are.
Absolutely. Utter disbelief. I love that. Swathalach.
Swathalach.
Swathalach. It sounds exactly morbid. Okay. So that would be, this is where my self-doubting comes in as well. Absolutely, Sonia, it comes in because we feel that small element of betrayal and mistrust. Okay, that comes in with that. Okay, so those are the few things. Then not infrequently, they produce life-altering changes. So in other words, frequently, most of these things will actually cause us life-altering changes. The effects of a catastrophic betrayal are most relevant for anxiety disorders, OCD, and PTSD in particular. So if you're suffering for some form of post-traumatic stress disorder, so post-traumatic stress disorder could be, for example, you will suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder if your parents die when you're a young person. You're going to suffer from that. If your parents get divorced when you're young, you're going to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. OCD, that would be relevant more to those people that OCD is
obsessive compulsive.
Obsessive compulsive disorder. So anything that's obsessive, all right, which could be very much maybe your high C profiles. Okay. Anxiety disorders, very much your high I profiles will suffer from anxiety disorders. So it definitely plays a role. But when you say catastrophic, it's something that gets imprinted in the mind. So little betrayals, we might just walk past and not get affected, but each one of us will have some form of betrayal that happened to us. So just because my parents got divorced, they just think it's an incident of them parting ways. But to me as a child, that's betrayal. You've betrayed me as a child. So we need to understand that these things happen. If I get put into a foster home, that's betrayal, okay, at its highest core. If I, there's a lot of ways. If my spouse has an affair, that's major betrayal. That's catastrophic betrayal on a magnetic scale. So there's lots of different ways that if there's somebody that you trust, that really trusts, that now does something that causes your trust to be broken, that's a catastrophic betrayal for some people and maybe not for others. So we need to understand that this is going to impact us for a long term. Okay. So here's some signs and symptoms. The trauma of betrayal can affect physical and mental health, but the specific effects can vary depending on the type of trauma. Okay. Keep in mind that not everybody experiences trauma in the same way either. And we'll talk a little bit more about that just now. But if we have a look at the effects of betrayal, can show up shortly after the trauma and persist into adulthood. So here's some key signs, for example, of where it could possibly your trauma could come from, or your betrayal could come from. That's trouble. What will happen is key signs that you're suffering from betrayal is trouble recognizing, expressing, and managing emotions. So at any time when you're out of control with your emotions, you're suffering the side effects or the effects of what betrayal has caused to you.
Low EQ.
And not necessarily low EQ. You could still have a very high EQ. Okay, emotional quadrant could still be high, but when something triggers that one thing of betrayal, then it could go into dismanaging. If you have any signs of anxiety, depression, or any other mental health symptoms, okay, we might not. Sometimes we're always looking. So we often treat the symptom, but we now need to go and say what is the cause, and the root cause could possibly be betrayal. Okay, nightmares, physical pain or stomach distress, panic attacks, thoughts of suicide, difficulty trusting others, attachment issues, eating disorders, and also substance abuse. So all of these are now signs and symptoms that possibly the root could be betrayal. And that's a lot of things to look at. So for me, if I had to go and look at anxiety, if I had to look at bordering depression, if I had to go and look at difficulty trusting others, okay, and yeah, no, and very much trouble not recognizing, but managing my emotions. So recognizing I don't have a problem, expressing I don't have a problem, but definitely maybe managing emotions. So if I look at that, then I need to go back and say, I need to look back at what is my root cause that is of the betrayal, and where does the betrayal come from, and where do the triggers come from there. Any questions so far, or is everybody happy to, let's just see here. Mine definitely eating disorder. Jaap says, I eat my unhappiness and happiness. Absolutely. Well, I totally associate with that completely. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to say anything? Yes, Rian.
I just want to know, Doc, that my parents died when I was young. So in their death, they also betrayed you. Or how do you understand that?
Absolutely. So you could see it as a child, they left you alone, and so therefore they deserted you. So therefore you feel a sense of betrayal, and that traumatic experience could be seen as betrayal. And everybody else is treating you maybe for panic attacks, maybe for anxiety or depression, but nobody's going to say, hold on, I as a little child thought my parents betrayed me, but I'm no longer rocking up the next day. And that's a form of betrayal. It's sense of betrayal. It makes sense. Awesome. Trust issues in a big way. Me, Fernando, big time. Trust issues is my biggest thing. And for me, it's because my mom and dad got divorced when I was 9. So now I don't trust. You know, so that's one of my things. And anybody who represents or not represents, but yeah, resembles is the word I want. Resembles my dad, I have a major trust issues with. Anybody that comes across with any form of controlling behavior, aggressiveness towards me, anything like that, walks the way my dad does, I immediately don't trust that person. So that for me, I know and identify that, but I didn't look at it as betrayal. Okay, so now I need to really go back and say, okay, so now I can go to the Lord and I can talk to the Lord and say, okay, fine, help me deal with the spirit of betrayal that I'm feeling, because I'm overreacting in situations where there's a controlling male. You understand that? Okay. Let's see if anybody else said trust. Yeah, absolutely, Fernando. Trust issues. Right, share screen again. I hope this is helping, because it definitely helped me when I started processing it today. So let's have a look at this lot. Okay, so here's what happens is that something external will happen to us. Okay, so I've given some examples of divorce, death of a parent, whatever it might be. So something happens, something hits us. Then immediately what happens is we get an emotional reaction. So that's the first thing, we get an emotional reaction. And we need to understand that our emotions are messengers. They're actually our inner wisdom within us. And we have a tendency to abuse them as opposed to collect them and listen to them as wisdom, especially someone like myself, okay? So they manifest physically and they provide us with vital information about what we're experiencing and what actions we need to take. So we should start listening to our emotions when this is happening. And then what happens is immediately my emotions kick in. Then the next thing is a feeling starts happening. So the emotion happens, and now all of a sudden I'm attaching feelings to it. And what we need to understand is that our feelings are subjective. They're actually an expression of our emotions. They're not separate. Okay, so they're the conscious experience of our emotions. In other words, if your emotions are physical, then your feelings would be mental. Okay, so feelings are how you perceive your emotions, and they assign a meaning to your emotional experience that you're having. Okay, so we can't, so something happens to us, immediately we have an emotional reaction. But what happens is automatically our feelings kick in. Okay, and if we're not cautious, what happens is that, for example, let's use this as an example. If, for example, three people experience exactly the same emotion at the same time, so the same event happens to them, whether it's a hijacking, whether it's whatever it is, but they experience it at the same time, each one of them are going to feel differently. Each one of them are going to respond differently. And if we understand that, we cannot project what we are feeling onto someone else and say whether a person is right or wrong. Okay. Okay. Funny enough, I still tend to trust until given reason not to trust. Absolutely. Can it also be losing a parent at 9? Absolutely. That's major betrayal. Okay. That's major betrayal. And that would now automatically, you've got to go back to a 9-year-old. You've got to go back to that emotional reaction that you had and the feelings that then got attached to it, because what happens is that your feelings have a tendency, so your feelings are sparked. Okay, sorry. Your feelings are sparked by your emotions. Okay, and they shaped by your previous experiences, your beliefs and your memories and your thoughts that were associated to that particular event that caused the emotion that gave you the feeling. Okay, and the feelings are subject and they're different from person to person. So what we got to understand is that there's this whole cycle that everything adds together in it. And if we realize that something's going to happen, my emotions are automatically going to be triggered, and it's my decision to decide how I feel. See, that's where we're getting it wrong. We're just reacting, okay, because we're not managing the feeling behind it. And so what happens to us is very simple. No, it's actually not simple. It's extremely complicated. The neurons that fire together in your brain, okay, they end up wiring together. So the more you repeat the behaviors, the more your neurons in your brain, okay, fire together, the stronger the connection gets on that pathway between your feelings and a specific situation between people and places. So hence, if we don't deal with that root cause of betrayal, what happens is it happens again. And so the wiring gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and now it becomes almost unbreakable. And so we continue to live that pattern. So I had betrayal also as a 9-year-old when my mom and dad got divorced. I witnessed my mom hitting my dad. I witnessed all that. So I grew up as a child not trusting men. Okay, I grew up as a child specifically. Then my dad was an extremely controlling person. So now I have this authority figure that's forcing themselves with a controlling nature upon what I can do and what I can't do. And so therefore, every time he did that, every time he forced us to go to a meeting we didn't want to, every time he forced us to do something we didn't want to, that neuron thickness got joined together. Now it's almost like a cord that cannot be broken. And so now I'm overreacting to situations where specifically controlling men start doing something that I literally overreact. And it causes a spiral for me. Any questions? Or because that's quite a picture. I don't know if you want to take a picture screenshot of it, because it's really valuable, especially to know that we need to start listening to that emotional reaction before it sparks the feelings. Because when the feelings come in, the feelings are going to be dictated by our memories, past experiences, and beliefs, and then that's how we behave.
I'd like to interject here because obviously
I'm going to leave it up in case we refer to it, but yeah.
all of us can self-manage by asking the why.
Mhm.
Why am I feeling this way? Why am I
Yes.
reacting this way? Why am I not reacting at all? Because you can either react or you cannot react.
Correct.
Because in some cases you should be reacting, but there's a latent fear in the subconscious because when you did try and address it in the past, you got hurt, and
Mhm.
that's a sense of betrayal. So, but I think the question of why am I either doing this or not doing this, and why am I not seeing the early warning signs? I hope that we go into that a little bit later.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Doc jumped the fence before the horse even arrived. But it's okay. Okay, so this is how we function naturally. So let's look at it a little bit deeper. All right. So we have our emotional trigger. Automatically, what happens when whatever the emotional trigger is, all right. So the brain releases chemicals. The moment it releases chemicals, your body reacts. Okay. So whether we like it or not, your body is going to react. And the craziest thing is it's an automatic response. And the reason it's an automatic response, and the reason why the moment we hit the emotional trigger, the brain kicks in, the body reacts. It's an automatically response. And at this point in time, we cannot process. That's why we need to process when we're out of these situations. When you're in a coaching situation, or if you're sitting somebody, you ask that question, why? Ask, but you can't ask it while it's happening because the neurons are too strong and it causes the automatic reaction.
Yeah.
Because you literally, from the time the trigger hits to the body reacting is 90 seconds. So unless you can stop yourself in 90 seconds, you will remain with the same thoughts and the same emotional circuit would continue. You only have 90 seconds in which to do it. The sensation I have at the moment I realize the betrayal, it's like a shiver that goes through from my head to my toes. Absolutely, Vilma. Absolutely. And if you don't stop yourself in 90 seconds, the automatic response is going to happen. So now you've got to learn to process outside of it happening. As Vilma says, what are the triggers? How does your body react? So I now know, okay, what it feels like when a controlling male comes towards me, okay? I know. Now I've got 90 seconds, and I didn't know that I had 90 seconds. I've got 90 seconds to change how my body is going to react. Because the moment it reacts, it's going to go back into emotions, feelings, and I'm off the chart. Okay, but if I don't do the 90 seconds, what happens is our body stays. Anger is too quick. Absolutely, it goes poof, like that. Okay, so now we've got to understand the whole process is saying that and Doc, please pronounce it for me, amygdala.
Amygdala.
The amygdala. How's it? Amygdala.
No, amygdala.
The amygdala. Okay, silent D. The amygdala. No, amygdala.
Amygdala.
Okay, is a pair of small almond-shaped regions that sit deep inside the lymphatic system of your brain, limbic, should I say, limbic system. Yeah. It plays a primary role in how you process intense emotions like fear and pleasure. Essentially, it has two jobs. One is to regulate your emotion, and two is to encode memories. So you have 90 seconds to change that amygdala.
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 Yeah.
Okay, amygdala. Okay, amygdala. All right. So 90 seconds is not long. All right. Especially when you're angry and you're going literally from 0 to anger in like 10 seconds. All right. But you still have 90 seconds to actually change that emotional response. And only way we can do this is by making yourself aware. Ask yourself the why is this happening? Find the trigger of betrayal that has happened somewhere. Deal with the root of betrayal through prayer and asking the Lord to forgive whoever it is that has betrayed you. And then to recognize when does that trigger hit me? And when it hits me, 90 seconds not to give into the feelings and the memories that are there. Okay, not easy, but it's something we need to start practicing. It sounds like exactly. It is that fight or flight impulse that is going to kick in 100%. Okay, you take a picture of this one. You all good? Okay, so it's crazy to think how complex it is, but yet how simple it is to solve. Okay, and so I want to get this right because I need to get it right in order to move forward with relationship with people that controlling males. That it's not Doc, by the way, just so that you know. Okay, I mean, I know he's a D and a choleric, but he's not that controlling. All right. Okay, so now let's look at this in another picture format, which is actually pretty cool. Okay, and that is like this. The event happens. You got 90 seconds. If the 90 seconds is done and you haven't done it there, it's going to cling. And the clinging, as you continue to cling to your emotions, you will continue to feel them and you will continue to be controlled by them. More importantly, as you continue to cling to the same thoughts that flow from these emotions, you will continue to feel the same way. So it's all about what you think, how you feel is what you will do. So if you just look at it like this, incident happens, I've got 90 seconds to rewire. If I don't rewire in 90 seconds, I'm going to repeat the pattern. I'm going to think the same way. I'm going to feel the same way. I'm going to act the same way. Okay. So we've got that 90-second rule. All right. No wonder Doc is scared of him. Absolutely. All right. He's got 90 seconds to run like hell. So it is actually quite important for us to realize that we've got to function, and the only way we can deal with it is when you're doing your quiet time, especially if you've experienced an emotion the day before, the day after, when you're calmer, to ask, why did I feel this? Ask the Holy Spirit to go deep to find out the root, because it's only once you know the root, you know the cause, you know the type of person, you know what it was, can you start saying, hold on a second, I've got 90 seconds to reprogram, so that when we do cling, we cling to the new pattern, not the old order of things. Any questions? Are we good so far?
I'd just like to say to anybody that is sort of having a harsh look at yourself, the truth is only about 1 out of 10 people have the ability to, in 90 seconds, identify
Absolutely.
the why and to remedy it. And it has taken 10 to 1 years of training and experience of being aware of it.
I wouldn't even put 1 in 10. I'd go 1 in 100. If you look at people and how they react and respond and that kind of thing. I mean, if you look generally around
The
us,
majority of people can't do it.
Yeah.
They will revert back and feel controlled by that emotion, and later on say, what the heck happened to me?
And that's going back to even before, when we spoke about when Doc mentioned the emotional quadrant. You might be very high in your emotional quadrant, and you might be functioning beautifully for 6 months, a year, 2 years, no problem. Then all of a sudden, a trigger from someone happens somewhere, somehow. It could be on the train station, it could be at a laundromat, it could be anything, that somebody does something that all of a sudden, man, that feeling comes back that you were when you were 9 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, you know, all the rest of it. All of a sudden now you don't know what's happening and you can react instantly. So these things, and if you're not aware of it, okay, that 90 seconds to take a deep breath and say, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to behave this way. That now takes the personal self-control that God talks about. And that is not an easy thing to do. Okay. Cool. You happy? All right. So yeah, so let's have a look at how we can actually take that painful negative event, and I'll show you what it's going to look like from a negative perspective and how we can actually find it in a healing perspective. Okay, so close up, and suppressed avoid feelings of and emotions. So what happens is the negative effect is if you close up, all right, you suppress, you avoid your feelings and your emotions, you don't address it whatsoever. What is then going to happen, okay, is it's going to lead to unprocessed energy, all right? And when you get this unprocessed energy, what happens is it becomes a psychological soft spot. And trust me, the devil is looking for all our psychological soft spots to come and press it on a daily basis, okay? When that happens, then you end up with future triggers. So anything that you close up to, you suppress those feelings, you avoid them because people told you cowboys don't cry, okay? Boys are not allowed to feel, all those things would end up as becoming triggers. Sometimes a specific, yes, exactly. It could be a smell. Absolutely, Vilma, it could be a smell. So it could be anything, and you're sort of like, what's happening? And then all these emotions start coming up, and then you don't realize it. And the next minute you grumpy at the next person, and you think, where did that come from? Okay, and this is where we should be sitting back and saying, hold on a second. Okay, so if you close up, suppress your feelings and your emotions, that's going to be lead to unprocessed energy, which then gives you that psychological soft spot, which means you will have future triggers. Okay, so guaranteed. However, on the other hand, if you take the time to stay open and process all your emotions and your feelings, all right, this is going to lead to processed energy. Processed energy means you're in control of the how you react to things. So it's the energy that is there, the way you react to those things, which then becomes a learning experience. When we get to that space where it's a learning experience, what happens is because we've learned from it, we will no longer have triggers. Okay. So what we've got to do is we've got to say, how do I stay open? How do I walk every single day, listening to my emotions and my feelings? Write them down. You don't have to deal with them there and then on the spot. I would highly recommend you don't deal with them. Just take a deep breath but write them down. Carry a little notebook, make a note of it in your diary or whatever it is. But then that evening, go and say, hold on, what happened? Why did this happen? Where did it come from? Okay, who was in front of me? What were the smells? Okay, what was the incident? What was the circumstances? And all of those things. Then that way it leads to being processed. And when you process something, you go on that journey of being able to release yourself. And then you know some of the things we can't solve by ourselves. We all took pictures of that one. Some things we cannot, sorry, do I go back, Rian? You good? Okay.
Yes, please, for a second. Can you put it up for 1 second?
Absolutely. There we go.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Pleasure. So it's only when we are in a state, when we need to go and put ourselves into a state, and that is how do I put myself into a state that I stay calm, so I can actually go through this processing process and look at what is triggered, what my triggers are, and why they're happening, and who they are. Okay, and then once you've processed, some of us might, or once you've come to the conclusion, some of us might need to debrief with someone else. Okay, you might need to speak to someone. You might not all of us are going to, Doc, for example, who's a counselor, coach, a mentor, is able to do this on his own. All right. Whereas some other people might need to talk to someone about it. And then it's get a trusting person, someone you can trust with what you've got in you in order to actually do that. Right. Do you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to add that one of the methodologies that we do use with a person that habitually battles to, that goes back to the future trigger, is that we actually assimilate the same conditions.
Mm-hmm.
That means after we've gone through all the things, is it anxiety? Is it morbidity? Is it whatever it is, all those key signs that we had? Then to enable the person to overcome that in therapy, we actually recreate that condition that caused it until the person gets the experience to recognize it in 90 seconds,
Yeah.
so that their why kicks in and they can take remedial action and actually not overreact at that moment.
Yeah. And remember that the most important thing is that your feelings and your emotions are there for you. All right, it's your experiences. So we can't compare ourselves to someone else. So a similar scenario could have happened to someone else. However, based on how their upbringing and circumstantials and ages that things happen to them, everybody will react differently to that. So it is only about identifying within the 90 seconds. Yeah. And then you can change the pattern. So what one needs to do is one needs to sit down and start working out, what are my triggers? Why am I triggering? What's the circumstances around the trigger? So when it happens again, you know you've got 90 seconds to change the behavior. Otherwise, the trigger still stays. And that's the thing that nobody knows about. Nobody knows or understands that you've got 90 seconds to rewire. Whereas it's important for us to know we have that 90 seconds. Anybody else like to comment? And I'd also like to know from each person what you got out of tonight's session. Yes, Rion.
I just want to say so that so it will be good to put this into your affirmations.
Wow, that's something interesting. Hey? And so what would your affirmation perhaps look like? What could an affirmation look like?
You know my story. You guys know my story, but my story is.
I will not feel betrayed by my parents dying at a young age when I was not in control.
So let's reword that, because if you say I will not, and then that, your brain will only listen, it'll drop the not and says I will. So now we need to rephrase that. Okay. So maybe something along the lines that I am aware I have 90 seconds. I'm aware I have 90 seconds to rewire my brain. I'm aware I have 90 seconds to rewire my brain against betrayal or against whatever it is. Okay. So I am aware I have 90 seconds. And if you say that on a daily basis, your mind is going to, something's going to happen. I am aware I've got 90 seconds. Okay. And then you've got to sort of, and then rewire, take a deep breath, say, okay, this is not a reality. This is going back to my past. I'm not going to react. I'm going to react this way, and I'm going to stay calm in the situation. So that's possibly something you could do. So I'm aware. Awesome. Because the awareness brings healing. Great. Okay, there's some, let's just see in the chat box. It's only about your, is it only about identify within the 90 seconds? Is it healthy enough to identify, write it down, and pack later? I agree with you, Ileone. I think what we need to do is we need to write it down, identify it, unpack it later. But then when it reoccurs, when that trigger gets pushed again, to know that you've got 90 seconds to behave the way that you decided to unpack it. So you could say to yourself, the next time this happens, this is how I'm going to behave. Now you've given yourself a new recipe, and now you need to replace the old recipe. So when the trigger happens again, you've got your mechanism, you've written your mechanism down. Now you say, the next time this happens, this is how I'm going to respond. Okay, then when the emotion happens, you then respond the new way, and eventually the new way becomes the norm as opposed to the old. But yes, you need to sit down, write down, and unpack it. Awesome, well said. Thank you. All right.
I think everybody needs to consider a brainstorming exercise with themselves, asking what are the areas of betrayal. I mean, I've already written down 4 areas where I was deeply betrayed in my life, and I am aware of them. And also I've been looking at how do I actually react to the future trigger, or do I respond to the no future trigger? Because I've got the choice of respond or react. React is the natural response that is built into my body because of who I am based on my behavioral type. However, in circumstances, I'll give you an example. is that an elder gentleman hit me through the face with a fist not so long ago. And that split second I identified, and I could have, as an ex-sensei, I could have taken him out. And my training, I would have killed him. But I was able to control myself and say, you better stop because you're going to get hurt right now. But that control was there. But now I realize why. It was the hours and hours and hours of hitting and stopping.
Yeah.
Hitting and stopping. That kind of thing.
Oh, he was lucky he stopped. No more hammers, but then it looks like a fist. He's very lucky he stopped. I'll give you another example, and then I want Billy to answer. Actually, go for it, Billy, before I do.
Thank you, Michelle. Something that I realized tonight is also to look for symptoms of the effect of betrayal.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest symptoms for me to help people that I've learned tonight is people have a preoccupation, and they quickly talk of their betrayal. And I see you
so
smile.
glad
So
you said that. I'm so glad the Holy Spirit let me say that first, because my example was, okay, I've got a painting hanging behind Doc's desk. Okay, that painting to me portrays betrayal.
Sure.
And I'm always saying, okay, I have this morbid preoccupation with that painting, saying that it is my reminder to not trust people. Okay, I have this morbid preoccupation about this painting. So I'm so glad you said that, because I now need to look at the painting and I need to turn around and say, I cannot believe the most beautiful 18 months of joy and pleasure my husband took to paint that picture.
Amen, Lord.
Do you see the difference? And now whenever I see the painting, I'm not living in this constant, which is exactly what you said, this constant morbid connection to that painting. So then the moment people betray me, I say, you see, it's a good thing it reminds me.
So you've got something practical to associate with.
Something very practical. So I'm glad the Lord stopped me so that you could actually say that, because it's exactly what my example was about, that morbid preoccupation about it. And that's what I have about this painting. Now I'm going to start saying, and it's true, the hours that he sat painting it and the joy that he got. I mean, it was 18 months that he took to do this thing. So yeah. I need to, thank you.
Yeah, and then after that, to complete what you've said is the think, feel, do. And I think everybody knows which verse I will then bring from the Bible, and that is Jacob 1 verse 22. What you say, a lot of people that betrays, but what you live and what you do, that is the real important thing.
Wow.
Okay. That's James 1:22 for the English-speaking people.
Thank you.
Jacobus 1:22.
I don't know how your James became your Jacobus, but anyway. Awesome.
Correct, yes.
I agree with you, Custer. It is all about, would you mind sharing the picture of the painting on the Telegram? Absolutely. How are we going to do this?
I'll take a photograph.
Okay, do that. Yeah, it's a beautiful painting. All right. I agree with you, Mish. It's that 90 seconds. We're going to be doing this in the office, like when we see that to each other, like, we know we're working on our 90 seconds. Woosah, suck it in from the heaven above. You know exactly, Leonie, what I'm saying. It's like, suck it in. Exactly. Yes. Forget about counting to 10. This is what you think for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's only like 10 seconds. Okay. We now need to go to 90. Like, hello. All right. Now we're going to run out of breath somewhere along the line, so we can't overreact. Okay. Let's see if we can see the picture.
Telegram.
Oh, yes, we'll put on the Telegram group. Of course, Custer, you're so clever. Okay,
what you're saying,
Fernando.
Doc,
Yes.
this has been a rude awakening to me. I've always said I will forgive, but I won't forget.
Yeah.
And that
Me
not
too.
forget, it just stays. And I've got this situation, for example, it's been festering for the last 10 years, and it doesn't go away. It just seems to get worse. So yeah, it was a rude awakening today. You've got to let it go somehow.
Yeah, thank you for sharing with that, because it's something I have a tendency to say as well, and my staff will know that. I say the Bible doesn't say forgive and forget. It just says forgive. But if we keep the wrong memory alive, we are going to consistently live in that space of the emotions of betrayal. So what we need to do is say, yes, we don't forget the incident, but we need to rewire that incident. And so well done. Thank you for sharing with that. Thank you.
How do we do that?
Yeah, how do we do that? That's the tough one, eh? Yeah, that's the processing, and that's dealing with chatting to someone else about it with those kind of things. Awesome.
Well, that led to the situation where I don't trust anybody till they prove that they are trustworthy.
Me too.
I'm always on a back foot.
Me too, and I realized after this last 3 days this week, that's why I say whatever's happening to me current, I need to share with you, because if I'm battling with this, then I clearly think somebody else is battling with it, and I've got to share with you, and I'm seriously battling with this. So there we go. Anthony's going to put this on
just put it on Telegram.
On the Telegram group, but there we go. It's a beautiful picture. It's huge, and it's got so much depth in it. So we'll put it on the Telegram group. It's probably what 1.5 meters by
1 by 2 by 800.
1 by 2 by 800. There we go, to be exact.
Is that not the picture that we see on the Zoom every time?
Yes.
It's the picture you see on the Zoom every single time. It's a picture. I look at my husband, but I don't see him as betrayal. I see the picture. So now I need to change it. Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing, Fernando. Leonie, what have you got out of tonight's session?
Well, it's rewire or repeat. That's it. And then in between the identification is getting your recipe on how you're going to rewire. So
Brilliant.
yeah, my first step is just going to be to breathe for 90 seconds, identify it. If I don't have time to deal with it, I'm going to write it down and I'm going to force myself to get back to that. But getting a recipe, like you said. Awesome. So yeah, getting a recipe to identify the trigger and then use that mechanism for new way to become the norm. So yeah.
Thank you. Great stuff. And then posting on the chat boxes, I have trust issues because of betrayal. I actually realized now that I need to identify the triggers of betrayal in my past and get it out. What a rude awakening. If I have to deal with the same situation through counseling, I honestly don't know how I would react though. Never tried it, even though I went for counseling at one stage. Awesome. Because sometimes what counselors do, or more what psychologists do, is they just repeat your story until you come up with the solution yourself. So prayer is still for me, the prayer counseling for me is the best. And there's a beautiful lady that does an amazing job at the NG Kerk here in Moraletta Park, NG. What's her name?
Mariki
de Toy. So when we were hijacked, that's who I went to. And when Doc was shot, that's who I went to. And she just processes so beautifully and so godly and so kind. Yeah, she's really good. Yeah. Okie dokie. So Rian, is there anything else you want to add and tell us what you got out of tonight's session? And I don't know if Marika's with you. If she is, what did she learn?
She's with the kids.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. I'm so glad that I can be also part of this talk.
It's a pleasure.
I think you need to master your emotions and think about it.
Absolutely.
I think the 90 seconds is a challenge. So.
It's a big challenge. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So, but at least you got some good counselors around you to help you process it. Vilma, what did you get out of this?
Yeah, but so yeah, my thing is 90 seconds, definitely. Awareness.
Yeah.
And then again, you know, my favorite word to then influence your brain to go the way that you want it to go.
I like that.
In other words, control.
I like that. Influence your brain.
And then, and your picture. I actually understand Michelle.
Yeah.
There's a very old soul in that picture.
It is, eh?
Yeah. And of course, I noticed the Dutch flag, but there's it's almost like a colonial thing, and there's a brooding type of atmosphere when you look at the picture, when I look at the picture.
Yeah.
So I can understand the senses, what you pick up, Michelle. But it's a stunning picture.
It's
And
beautiful.
there's an awful lot going on there, hey?
There really is. I mean, right, if you look at it from the detail and it's really detailed. I mean, you spent 18 months painting it, so it's awesome. Thank you.
I'll just share one thing about it. Like for instance, you cannot see people on the mast when you look at it from a distance. However, because this is an exact replica of the 1668 Louis VI Vernet, V-E-R-N-E-T.
Yeah.
It's an exact replica of it, and it actually hangs in Trafalgar.
Yeah.
And if you go and look on the mast, there are people in positions on the mast, and they are exactly the same as per the original.
Exactly.
So
everything is
this is an exact replica.
No.
And it's
like
a grandmaster.
submarine in the background.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
And Hiroshima.
Custer, thank you for sharing. The same as Leonie, rewriting 90 seconds, and it's a pleasure. Right, Arno, do you want to say anything? Share with us what you got out of the session, or do you want to type in?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, the thing to control those emotions right from the beginning, I think, is very important. I've been fortunate enough to learn to do that immediately, because Satan will also take that thought and start working with it and start putting other things in your mind, and then you can go into a spiral. The other thing is offense is also taken, it's not given. So people tend to take offense. It's your choice to take offense. So I'm very glad that you actually did this, because there's a lot of people that can actually work through this and get to a position where they can realize it's a choice.
Absolutely.
But you need to make that choice very quickly, because once you've made the choice to not react to this, then you can change direction.
Absolutely.
If you don't make that choice in your mind, then you are going to spiral.
Absolutely. 100%. And the thing is, because most people don't take the time to process, they don't know what the other choice could possibly be.
Yeah, correct.
Awesome.
There's also a lot of other things that can trigger, like statues or symbols or stuff like that.
So true. So true.
Words as well. I mean, words can also trigger people.
Tones of voices. There's a lot of things.
Can I share an example of what happened?
Thanks, Anna.
Okay, I call it the 4-in-1. The previous 4 occasions that I had in my life, 3 times I got it right, no future trigger, but the once I actually lost it because a person called me a liar. But I immediately was able to afterwards say, why wasn't I able this time to control that? It's because as a youngster, because now remember, I was a young karateka, and my sister was a ballet teacher, and she used to be my dad's favorite, and she would come home and draw the crying card, daddy, he hit me. My father used to smash me without even asking a question. And that unrighteous act of me getting pummeled where I was not guilty, okay, because I tried to live in truth. And the other day, this person in our circumstances, I was okay with all the stuff in the report. I was absolutely okay. But this person a week ago attacked my integrity and said to me, you're a liar. I lost it. Ask my wife, I lost it. And I had to come back and say why. And I realized it's because of those accusations of who I am, which I am not. So I'm still working on it, guys. So 4-in-1. 3 I get right, but 1 I still have to penalty. As long as you realize you're not perfect, it's going to happen to you, even when you don't expect it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, with a face like that, hey, Fernando. Sonia says the 9-second rule, step back, take a breath, rewire your brain to react differently, as what you would have. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, Anna.
I think the other thing what we must realize as well is you need to look at situations from a different angle. And the other thing is, when you realize that God will eventually deal with these people one day, that is a different angle that you need to look at. Because once you realize that God is in control of this, and even you don't have to do anything from your side, but eventually things will, he will take care of that.
Absolutely.
But it's very difficult. It's not everybody that can do this.
Absolutely. And it takes time. And it takes that awareness. And the awareness is the first journey. And then it's what am I going to replace it with? Because it's like an alcoholic, for example. If you take away the drinking, what do you replace it with? And we've become addictive to our behavior based on our patterns, especially for those that haven't dealt with it. So now if I take it away, what I replace it with? So we need to understand, what am I replacing it with, so we can quickly replace, so we can have recovery quicker. Awesome. Yes, Rian.
Doctor, how does talk in your relationship help you with that betrayal? So how can I get Marika to help me and me to help her with the betrayal that she had? Because I think we don't know the betrayal that our spouses have, so that we can help each other.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Do you want to answer that?
Yes, I can. And the thing is, if you have a person that can listen to you non-judgmentally, like, oh, you see, there you were wrong. No. If you have a person that can actually just listen and help you process and keep on asking, so why did you do that? Why did you think that? Why did you say that? And honestly, just play the why game without judging. That processing will get to a point you will go like, there's the key, because self-healing happens when sufficient information goes over the actual limbic cortex. And that's really just how life works. Okay, and then amygdala process gets reversed.
So what also is where Doc helped me many years ago also to start going onto the non-reactive process is he would have a trigger. So for example, he could see that I was starting to react, and then he would have a code word for me, and the code word could be Shelley kindness, and it, not don't do that, not saying, you see, there it goes again, nothing like that. It's find a code word that when that word gets said, then I'm about to overreact, or this person is pushing my buttons, or you are busy overreacting. It's time to stop. Okay. And so it's important for us to just have a code word between each other, but a kind code word. Okay. Not like, oh, you said you wanted to stop drinking, now enough is enough. That's going to help at all. So it's like, hey, and if Doc had to say to me 1 too many, I will have another 10. Okay, so you can't have that. It could be just a code word that could be, say, Toby's here, or something like that. And then Toby's here, and then it'll make me think the trigger, oh, we've agreed on that, I'm actually going to have 1 too many. Something like that, those kind of kind words. That kindness will always help others go through it. It's the accusation that causes us to continue. I hope that makes sense. Cool. Nice. Okay, who's not? Anton, you're not off the hook. What did you learn tonight? Mashi, you're not off the hook. I can see paintings in the background, but you're not off the hook. Unless you've typed in.
Look, that 90-minute or that 90-second rule is going to be the new one coming into the office every day. And to deal with the past experiences, not to bring it into the future experience. Awesome. That is what I learned tonight. We need to forgive and forget and rewire, like Leonie said. That is the most important part, to take other people into consideration.
Awesome. And I'm reading Anton's here too, which is, I need to step away, go out or get away from the situation, take a walk, and regain that self-control in the brain, and then come back again. Perfect. Thank you, Anton. I agree with you, Billy. Code word.
But
the code
both
word.
agree on it. That's the point.
Yeah, but both, a kind word that you both agree on.
Correct.
And you need to both agree on it. So yes, I'll respond to that, whatever it might be. Awesome. Cool. Right, Villy, what did you get out of this? Shalane, Marina. Sonia said hers. Yep. I'll take my laptop to you because you're just my neighbor. So are you there? Okay. Looks like they're not all there. It looks like they've run away. There we go. Back.
Yeah, definitely for me, Doc, I have to write that recipe down for the 90 seconds.
Yeah.
To change my mind, especially now with my changes and stuff. I know I'm procrastinating a lot, so there's a big job for me on working on my mind, changing my mind.
Awesome. Great.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well done. Don't know if Shalane is there. Billy there. Yes, how's it?
Yes, hard. Yes, for me is to realize what's your trigger points.
Yeah.
And yeah, Doc, and how I see. So for me, sometimes it's very difficult to say sorry.
Yeah.
Would you please forgive me? So before I react, just think, okay, I need to ask forgiveness or say sorry if I overreact.
Awesome.
And that sometimes, stops me to overreact on a situation. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Well done.
Nice. Yeah, Vilma, we all got homework, eh? All right, guys. We after the hour at 9, so really appreciate it. Is there anybody that wants to just say one more last thing? You good, Villy?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll say the last thing. The obvious is, guys, I love this hour weekly with my wife. Adds value to our lives. She really has a gift as a didaskalos, which means teacher trainer. And I don't miss this for anything if possible. I really, really enjoy this training, and I feel we're being equipped. And the good news is that we plan to do this with all of the MyWealth members in time to come. I think, and you know what, Fernando, I'm thinking of you and I have been around the bush a bit, but when we hear it again, we just grow to the next level. You can never bore me if I hear the same thing a second time, the way you teach it.
Awesome.
And I can see Leonie is agreeing with that too. Hey, Fernando, what do you say?
You're the best.
Thanks, Mish. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Every time you pick up something new again.
Awesome. Thanks, Fernando.
It's awesome.
Okay.
Great.
So just a little ad.
Yes, Anna.
Don't miss Thursday night.
Tuesday night.
Thursday night. This Thursday.
Oh, yes, Anna, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, I just saw in the back office today, there's a course, New Venture Creation.
Yes, that's the one you.
What is that about?
Soon. It's the one that you want a pilot program with. So hopefully we'll have
Okay.
you registering soon. We're almost there. Thanks, Anna.
Is that the one for February?
Literally almost there. So yeah. So
Is that the one starting in February?
That's the one for everybody in February, but there's a few people that we just need to pilot that to go through the system to make sure it works. So very cool. Okay, we'll put you on, Fernando. Marina, can you put Fernando's name on, please? Awesome.
Okay, Thursday night.
I had fiber installed, so it's working quite nice.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Vilma, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Did you change your hair color?
This, I think the rinse is working nicely. Awesome.
Rian sent out the ad for Thursday night. I'll be speaking on the heart of relationships on Thursday. Okay.
Great.
If you can make it, see you there.
Great, guys. Thanks for a great session. Love you all. See you next week.
See you
Cheers.
guys.
Bye.